Have you ever heard of Mitchel's Stone Circle? And do you know that as a vegan witch, I felt as though I was in peril of being trapped there forever? Stick around and I will explain. Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Corey Wren. I'm a vegan sociologist, a vegan feminist, and a vegan witch. And on this channel, I take you through the theory of vegan witchcraft, and also sometimes I take you on travels with me to really neat witchy places, particularly located here in England where I'm recording. So for Winter Solstice 2025, I wanted to take advantage of living in this wonderful country and take my dog Mishka and head up north from Canterbury all the way to Shropshire, which is way on up there on the Welsh border. I was specifically there looking for a well-recommended stone circle, Mitchel's Fold. Mitchel is some old like Celtic Anglo-Saxon word that kind of got moved across the centuries into the word Mitchel's, and I don't really remember what actually it originally meant, but basically there's no actual person named Mitchel. It's just like the word kind of got jumbled up over time. But basically, this is a really remote stone circle. It's run by English Heritage, and basically all they do is go up there and I think mow the grass. I don't even know if they do that because there's sheep running around everywhere, free roaming. So I wanted to go there for winter solstice, and I don't think that it actually is aligned with the winter solstice sun, because when I arrived there, it was about 9:30 in the morning, and the sun really wasn't aligning with the stones in any way that I could see. Perhaps it would be different at sunset, or maybe it'd be different at summer solstice. Maybe this is a stone circle that aligns with the moon in some way. I couldn't quite figure that out. But I wanted to come and check this place out anyway, because I'm willing to bet that people would have been using it at this time of year anyway. And really, it doesn't matter. I think stone circles hold magic all year round. It's just nice to add to that magic by going at the times at which they were probably designed to highlight. But probably not winter solstice for this one. But it's really, really interesting. So we were staying in a little cottage near about 3 miles away, and we took a bus that got us about a mile towards it, and then we walked the remaining 2 miles to get there. It's really quite remote. You can't drive up to the circle. Even if you drive to the parking lot, you still have a bit of a walk to get there. So it's not very accessible, by the way, if you have disabilities that make mobility difficult. But anyway, so we got there and checked it out, and it was just really remarkable, because even if it's not really aligned to the sun or the moon, I mean, obviously the people who built this, and this is Stone Age, by the way, it's like 3,000 years old. Obviously the people who built this were going to be influenced by the surroundings. And it was just stunning, just a beautiful, beautiful vista. And we were just constantly surrounded by rainbows. Every time I turned around, I saw a new rainbow, because it was just, that's the way it is at that part of the country. It's just spitting rain all the time. We were very fortunate that it wasn't dumping rain, and so we could actually walk around and enjoy it. There used to be 2 big entryway stones marking the entrance to the circle. Only one of them is remaining today. It's about 6 foot tall, 5 foot, almost 5'10", so you can kind of see for perspective there. And so that's really all there was to it. It's not like when you go to Avebury and it's just like this massive, overwhelming circle. This one was overwhelming in that it was sort of hidden. It's hidden away, but it's in this amazing surrounding. And the fact that we had it all to ourselves, I thought was quite awesome. I couldn't bring my dog. Speaking of accessibility, it was way too inaccessible for my disabled dog, because I have to push her in a cart. She can't really walk very far anymore. So yeah, I had to leave her behind, unfortunately. But I also had, speaking of animals, I also had an interesting sort of reflection as I was standing in this circle. There, like many of these old circles that we don't really know why they were built. Like I said, this one doesn't seem to be aligned to the winter solstice in any way. So when we don't really know why they're built, over time what happens is that stories, local narratives, and folklores get wrapped around them. Well, in this particular stone circle, there is this myth that there is a time of famine, and there was this magical cow, and this magical cow would produce limitless milk for people to consume, humans to consume. And this nasty, naughty old witch came and tricked the cow by using a sieve, so that there was no bucket that the milk was going into, so the milk just kept going on, spilling and wasting. So you can see here about the lessons we're learning about not wasting food in a time of food precarity. So anyway, the outcome was that the cow skedaddled out of there, was scared away because they realized they'd been tricked. And then maybe there's an underlying story here about respecting animals that are providing food. But anyway, so the cow disappears, runs away, and the people of the community are so angry and frustrated by this, they decide to punish this witch, and they turn her into stone. And she's locked into the stone circle, reportedly, and the other stones are put into place to protect her there and make sure she remains in situ. I thought that was very interesting as a vegan witch, because my job is to scare away the cows as well, because I don't want them to be exploited and harmed. And does that mean that I'm in peril of being made into stone and kept in the stone circle for all eternity? And this is something that I explored in my book, Vegan Witchcraft, is that a lot of witchcraft stories are wrapped around these ideas of protecting livestock. So we do see in the actual witchcraft, the records of people who are persecuted for witchcraft, one of the reasons that people would be persecuted is that they were seen to cause lameness or sickness in dairy cows, or to spoil butter, or to in some way interfere with livestock. And there's lots of different variations of that. For instance, one of them is that the witch would turn into a hare, and then the hare would go among the livestock and mess things up, and then they would turn back into a woman in the daytime. So it's really interesting that it provides another element of, or another bit of evidence rather, to the theory of vegan feminism, which basically argues that the status of women and the status of animals are entangled, and women not to be trusted, animals not to be trusted, but also both being chattel. And the witch, who is the witch, the archetypal woman in resistance, who refuses to be chattel, who refuses to be owned by a man, who oftentimes lives on her own. And another thing I think it's really interesting about witches is that they're superhuman in a way, aren't they? In some ways, they're framed as being quite animalistic, so they may suckle other animals, or they act like animals, they live amongst the animals. But then on the other hand, they can be very superhuman because they can fly, or they can jinx people or hex people and create potions or whatever else. And so basically what witches are doing in the medieval sort of imaginary is that they're challenging these new categories of humans and other species that are being constructed in that era. And so one of the things that you do to people who resist those categorizations is you stigmatize them and you persecute them. And so that's why we see women who are living alone, who are living with animals, who are empowered in some way, politically powerful, or speaking their mind, resisting. They're considered boundary breakers, and therefore they become more vulnerable to these efforts to disempower them. And obviously with witchcraft, that could be execution, it could be confiscation of your property, it could just be ostracization from your society, your community, etc. Well, non-human animals is the same thing. When non-human animals were considered to go outside of the boundaries that we were creating for them, it was not very good for them either. So if an animal fought back against their domestication, for instance, or if an animal interfered with domestication, like with wolves, the consequences could be very fatal. In fact, in medieval times, they actually would take some animals and put them on trial, just like they did with human witches. So, for instance, if a pig was known to attack a human, they might put the pig on trial. And all of this is, what is the point of that? That all of this is a sort of cultural project of creating these categories and policing these categories. So there you go. Even when we're looking at this remote stone circle out in the middle of nowhere on the Welsh border, we even had to walk, by the way, through Wales when we were coming from our cottage. We had to walk through Wales in order to get to the stone circle. Even in this remote place, we're still being connected to these old stories that persist today about the connectedness between women and other animals, and how women ultimately are not quite trusted, especially because of their supposed solidarity, relationship with other animals, and also their physical proximity to other animals, especially back in the day. So a lesson to be learned here, and I don't know if you're like me, yeah, my witchcraft absolutely is meant to disturb animal agriculture. That's exactly what I plan to do. So it's an interesting thing how back in the day it was definitely something that was, an unintended, people weren't actual witches back then. They were simply accused of being witches as a justification for doing all kinds of social harms to them. An excuse for structural discrimination against women, basically. But now, witches are reclaiming that, even if it wasn't historically true, we're reclaiming that and making that part of our identity. So this familiarity with other animals is now something that we reclaim today. Now, as a vegan witch, I'm reclaiming that bit where witches were supposed to have been upending animal agriculture. So there's actually, and I did not really advertise this because it's not supposed to be accessible to the public, there's actually a second Stonehenge that is near Mitchel's Stone Circle. And you can see it on Google Maps, but also we were using the English Heritage map, and we wanted to see if it was accessible. On Google Maps it says it's not. But on English Heritage, it seems like, yes, it is. So after we checked out Mitchel's Fold, we kept walking along the ridge. The path continued across this mountain, hill, whatever you want to call it. It was in between a hill and a mountain. And it was about an hour's walk, and it started to descend into forested areas and into farmland. And then you come up to a fence, and then there it is in the middle of a cow, I guess it's a cow field. And there was no direct accessible way into it, which means it's probably not they're probably not welcoming the public to go and look at it, but it was on the English Heritage map, so we did take a look at it. But here it is, so you don't have to do that, and don't have to risk pissing off a farmer who might have a different idea about accessibility. But in the Google reviews, people said it's not worth it, and it's not, it depends on how much you're into stone circles, whether or not it's worth it or not. I happen to be very into stone circles, and for me, yes, it was worth it, because it's a whole totally different experience. Mitchel's Fold is out in this mountainous area up there getting whipped by the winds, and much more majestic, whereas this one is much more to the ground, compact, and nonetheless, because it is a direct walk across the ridge down into it, they had to have been connected historically. So I thought it really would not be complete to visit Mitchel's Fold and not also visit this one. So if you're interested in checking it out, I would recommend, maybe just staying at the fence and looking in, because actually it's so overgrown. It's actually quite marshy as well. But, it's also, stone circles are sort of our birthright. It's our human collective cultural heritage, isn't it? But anyway, you don't have to do it, because here's some pictures and video, and I thought it was a nice compliment to Mitchel's Fold. If not as majestic, it's very special in its own way. And just, if it's not aligned with the sun, it's not aligned with the moon, I think just taking in the surrounds helps us to get an idea of what these ancient peoples were thinking. So this smaller circle actually is sort of encircled by a beautiful bubbling creek. So I'm imagining that it's having to do something with that water source, because it is kind of three sides of the circle are kind of surrounded by the creek, hence why it's marshy and wet and waterlogged. But anyway, you can see though, there's still a very beautiful view of the mountains around, the hills around, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, so a really, really wonderful winter solstice trip for me. I took a risk. I'd never been there before. There's not much on the internet about these two circles, and that kind of was the allure for me, to just go check out, see what's going on. So there you go. While we were there, we had a few side quests as well, because never been to that part of the country before. And we did depart over to Bishops Castle, which I've created a YouTube short about, so you can watch that to get a deep dive. But basically, this random town out in this mining country that is really well known for its elephants, because in World War II, a bunch of rich people had their own private elephants, and they brought them up to Bishops Castle to be safe from German bombing. And at least one of those elephants was left behind, and they used him in parades and things like that. That really broke my heart. It really kind of bummed me out for the rest of the trip, because I'm just thinking like how cold and miserable and rainy it was, and for a tropical animal to be there. And then also they're very social, just like we are, and to be isolated, the only elephant. It's really, really sad. I should clarify actually why the heck we were in Bishops Castle in the first place. Actually, we went there because my partner is a poet, and they had this very random poetry pharmacy there, out of all places. It was run by this famous poet. I don't know who. This is not my forte. But they, I guess, must have been from Bishops Castle, because why else would this thing be here? But it's this really amazing little shop where they basically create prescriptions based on what you feel like you need spiritually or mentally, physically. They create prescriptions, and they have little pills inside of the prescription bottles that have poems in them. So actually that was kind of nice to have that counterbalance, because the elephants really did bum me out. But we were there to see the poetry pharmacy, and they were welcoming to dogs. We also went to Shrewsbury because that was the main train station to get where we were, and I'd never been to Shrewsbury before, but it's a medieval Tudor type of town, city, market town. And it has like 700 listed buildings, and lots of vegan restaurants. Although I didn't end up checking any out, because when we were ready to eat, it was like, there was a really cool looking one, I think called Okra or something like that, but they closed at like 3 o'clock or something. So we didn't get to go there. But there's lots and lots of vegan restaurants in Shrewsbury, and it just has a whole witchy vibe to it.